it's kind of like you're waiting for your own downfall.
At this point, it doesn't stop me from doing the work, but I feel like at some point the burnout might happen.
Case for imposter syndrome is so high.
We see this a lot with startups, right? Everybody is solving for something and the problem statement is not always very clear.
Suddenly the investor is going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing.
We were able to do 2 at a time because we had no clue that it could be difficult or that there could be a thing that we could work towards.
And we were happy to get feedback.
Actually, without realizing, we live a lot of stories in our own head. Maybe it's a personality thing.
Need to succeed, need to prove, because you've seen those around you kind of come up the hard way.
Saying aim for success, aim for recognition or validation, and on the other side you're saying be humble, don't seek it, don't expect it.
But apparently women feel it a lot more than men, that luck got me here. It's a very strong word, imposter. Right? You're a con artist, you're fake, you really don't know what you're doing. And somehow we feel it so regularly, so easily. When it's a new job, you get a promotion, or you're the only one in the room that is supposed to know something or is an expert on something. And then this feeling creeps in. Why am I here? Do I deserve to be here? What if they figure out that I actually don't know it and I'm winging it? But actually, you do know it. And how do you remind yourself? How do you kind of get back into the game, get back into what you know so well or have taken the years to build expertise in, and put this niggling thought away that you're the imposter? That's right. Let's dive into imposter syndrome, shall we? Because apparently, I mean, depending on when you Google, 70 to 80% of us experience this.
Honestly, that's reassuring to know that at least 8 out of 10 people I'm meeting are feeling super insecure about what they're doing. That's a super reassuring metric.
That's true. So let's spend some time uncovering the imposter in us. Hi, welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. I'm Subha Chandrasekharan, a leadership and career growth coach.
And I'm Hasita. I'm a brand consultant and co-founder at Motley Crue.
Asita, thinking about imposter syndrome for today, somehow I went back to how we started Small Talk, right? Uh, because it reminded me of a time and space when the last thing we felt was imposter. Right?
Yeah.
We knew nothing, but we were so sure that this is what we wanted to do.
Funnily, I'm thinking of a lot of things I've started, which have then continued to take on a life of their own in the last 4 5 years. And I'm realizing being the idiot in the room was easy. It was really simple to not know. I think with the knowing came the feeling that, even with the podcast for that matter, Subha, it's
True.
taken a lot of meandering to get here. And most of the time, that meandering was in our own head.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why when this whole, kind of topic of imposter syndrome, we've been talking about it on and off because we hear it so often from the most unexpected quarters.
Especially the most unexpected
Right?
quarters. Yeah.
Like we hear celebrities, because we do listen to a lot of podcasts and we get to hear them up close and personal. And this is something that comes up so often. I was so surprised. I can't get over how unsure of himself Tom Hanks was in a podcast. How again and again, he was trying to uh, prove that he deserved to be a guest
Yeah.
and that he deserved to talk about his life story, right? And it's one of those podcasts where they're always recording, so even in the end you get to hear like kind of BTS conversation.
That actually reminds me of another Tom Holland who was equally out of his depth on another podcast. Do you think it's a podcast thing or is it a person thing?
The questions are too personal maybe. But yeah, there was Michelle Obama in Becoming, and I think she starts a chapter, or there's a paragraph which says, I felt like an imposter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Harvard educated, top of her game very early as a lawyer. And of course, the career trajectory went another way. Uh, first African American first lady.
Yeah.
And so there is reason to feel maybe a little on shaky ground. But to feel like an imposter, the term that we've
Yeah.
given it.
But also tell me this, if say 8 of us out of 10 people in a room are experiencing it and still we seem to continue to live our lives and
Hmm.
whatever, I mean, we achieve what we achieve, we are quiet about what we don't. Okay, there's a label to it. Is it really such a big deal that we have to call it out and talk about it and really work on it? Or is it just something you accept and move on?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we like to label everything, but I think why it is important is that it's kind of like you're waiting for your own downfall, and that's
Hmm.
not good energy in any situation,
Hmm.
right? Because what does imposter syndrome say? That you know, I am not competent enough, I
Hmm.
am not
Hmm.
good enough,
Hmm.
I am not yet ready for this. And not only that, those around me will figure it out and they will call me out.
So you're saying we will take increasingly lesser and fewer risks
Correct.
if that belief system were to continue.
Yeah, you'll be increasingly unsure of yourself
Hmm.
or increasingly looking for external validation, which
Hmm.
may or may
Hmm.
not come
Hmm.
in all situations,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
So if I'm forever thinking that, okay, I am the only lady in the room
Hmm.
who knows this, but at some point they're going to call me out as an imposter and say, hey, you actually don't know that much about AI, or you don't know that much about, whatever topic you're talking about. And I'm in a way waiting for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So
I
that,
knew it would happen, sort of. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
then that holds me back, I'm sure, right? Like,
Hmm.
I mean, why I am sure. I mean, it is something that we have experienced.
Over and over and over again, and we continue to. Yeah.
Maya Angelou's example is interesting because what it really tells you is that it's not in the early days always. You'd think that, okay, it's natural, like you said, you'll feel like somebody will say you don't know enough because you're starting out and you're new or you're fresh to something. She speaks about this after 11
Hmm.
books.
Hmm. Hmm.
All 11 did well, right? And she speaks about, I'm just kind of waiting for somebody to say, hey, you just happened to be in the right place at the right time and call me out.
Yeah, but funnily enough, I don't know, has anyone ever called anyone out for not being just trying to think, of
Yeah,
all the soul searching that we do, and we tell ourselves, oh, it's just, the next conversation, someone's going to point this out to
yeah,
me. I don't think it's happened though.
that's true.
Interesting. I mean, nevertheless, we all still experience it and it's still very real. And yes, there are multiple areas more recently with the kind of work that I'm now putting out on social media. I've seen a lot of positive feedback come my way,
All your diving
all the
videos, right?
diving
Yeah,
photos
yeah.
and videos and all of that on Instagram. And suddenly things have picked up. Right? For a long time, it was me and my friends, and suddenly there are lots of people who I don't know, and they're all telling me it's good work, and oh, we are so fascinated by this. And I'm thinking to myself, but you know what? There are better people out there, right? Like,
Mm.
why don't you go follow them? Why me? Like, I don't
Uh,
think I'm the person to tell this story, and it's so constant.
so
And
what does that do to you?
I mean, honestly, at this point, it doesn't stop me from doing the work, but I feel like at some point the burnout might happen.
Mm.
And interestingly, I spoke to someone who I look up to in this space and who's built their own following. And this person said to me, but don't forget that the work is what is important. It's not about the feedback at any point in time. It'll happen. Today, you're in the public domain. Someone may say something nice. Tomorrow, they may say something not so nice. But finally, the work is what is important. And that's the source of joy.
Mm.
And that's been very helpful, honestly, to contextualize and say, why am I even doing this in the first place? It was
Mm.
never for someone else. And
Yeah.
so, yesterday, when I posted a reel, I went and liked it first because I'm like, this is for me.
But honestly, sometimes it's a little tiring. This how zen we are supposed to be
Oh,
about
yes.
everything,
Yes.
right? Like everything is supposed to be like, oh, it's for the good of humanity, and you don't worry, the goodness will shine through on its own, and don't wait for any reward, don't wait for any likes, and all of that. But that's the whole thing. No, the game is so internal.
Yeah, yeah.
It is so internal that it will bring you down.
So, in context where, say, you're a team member working in on a very interesting problem statement, and we see this a lot with startups, right?
Mm.
Everybody is solving for something, and the problem statement is not always very clear.
Mm.
You're figuring it out as you
Yeah.
go along, and I think that can cause a lot of anxiety, and it can really throw a lot of people off. So, what should someone on both sides of that equation do, right? So, you're a leader, you're also figuring it out. How do you communicate that to another person to inspire them to start thinking as well, versus saying, oh, nobody knows anything, so let me just hide in my corner because I definitely don't know anything at all.
Yeah. No, but I think this is less of that and more of the individual. Like
Hmm.
what I'm thinking is, for example, in this situation, the startup founder, right? You had an idea, you put together a team, you put together some resources, and you strongly believe that this problem can be solved
Hmm. Hmm.
in
Hmm.
some way or the other. You kind of motivated a group to run with you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
The case for imposter syndrome is so high because you may not get that validation at all.
Hmm.
Like that problem solving takes time. For the market to say, yes, this is a way to solve this problem, takes time. You will have cycles of running out of resources,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And in through all that, you have to first firmly believe in yourself
Hmm.
that you are the person to solve this,
True.
right? But
Yeah.
if this energy of, but suddenly the investor is going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right? Suddenly this team who's quit other lucrative jobs and come here is going to figure out, hey, what are they smoking? Like this
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
going nowhere,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Then you will give up.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's take a bigger picture umbrella sort of, perspective here. I mean, startups are one example which comes to me immediately, but
Hmm.
I'm sure there are many contexts where this happens more often, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take something that feels abstract and something that's a very easy label that
Hmm.
could be applied either
Hmm.
to us or to someone else, and really say, why does it happen? Where does it happen?
Hmm.
Right? So startups, of course, being one
Yeah.
very plausible environment for that, but where else really?
So what you said is interesting that so there is this fundamental layer that you do have the expertise, you do
Mm-hmm.
have the know-how,
Hmm.
right? Because if you don't, then you are, I mean, imposter is not the word, but you are a newbie,
Fair.
right? Like
Yeah.
we're not talking about that situation.
Hmm.
We're
Hmm.
talking about where you've put in the hard work, or you've got the educational qualifications, or you've put in a lot of effort into an idea, or
Hmm.
you have reached that status, that position
Hmm. Hmm.
through growth,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
still you feel like, hey, this was luck,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And apparently women feel it a lot more than men, that luck got me here. I was in the right place at the right time. I could have chosen another path,
Hmm.
etc. But yeah, I think definitely being the first one in something, right?
Yeah.
Like the first woman dean of Harvard. Like, I don't
There's
know,
no
how do you,
precedence for what to do or
yeah,
who to
and
be.
you're
Yeah.
also hence held to higher standards
Hmm.
because we don't know what to expect of you. So let's expect the
The
sun
very
and the
best.
moon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, first woman CEO of a company.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So those are situations where the first in something,
Hmm.
maybe the first to even launch some kind of a product or a service,
Hmm. Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
held to a certain standard.
Yeah. The first
Uh,
person making any decision as such, any
Correct,
big,
correct,
big
correct.
decisions. Yeah. Yeah.
I think also certain fields are very prone to this.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, academia,
I can
right?
imagine. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some of it is so abstract.
Yeah.
Even the research is
Abstract in and of
abstract,
itself. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So what do you do?
What do you do? So,
Hmm.
academia, tech. I
Hmm.
mean, high
Hmm.
tech will be a place where there's always probably a feeling that somebody will figure out that this
Yeah.
isn't
I mean,
uh,
for what it's worth, all creative is a job in imposter syndrome.
correct,
Like you
correct.
carry it with you and then you bring it
Yeah.
back home every day.
Interestingly, one of our favorite, or rather not so favorite people, Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos,
Oh yeah.
right? So there's a story of a woman who uh,
Probably should
swindled,
have had imposter syndrome but didn't.
yeah, she swindled millions
Yeah.
pretending that a certain blood test kit worked, and
Hmm.
it didn't from the get go,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
And I
true.
mean, she's in jail now, but I mean, that was investigative journalism that unearthed her story. She's one, and
But when you said our not so favorite person, my mind immediately went to Meghan Markle, who also has no imposter syndrome. I mean,
yeah, I mean, she can bake, she can cut flowers, put them in a vase, and she's happy doing it. And we somehow are not happy seeing her doing it. I, I,
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, moving on. What's an episode if we don't talk about
Bring
Meghan
Meghan
Markle?
Markle, yes. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
But I think there
for
are
those of us
situations.
mere mortals who still experience,
Yes,
yeah,
the mere mortals that we are. Because, what's an episode if you don't reference the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because those guys have no imposter syndrome. They're just churning out nonsense, is
the
what I hear.
studio, yeah, the
Is
studio
what
for
I
sure,
hear.
yeah.
Okay, so my comments are extremely biased on the other extreme. So let that be. But I think when it's low stakes, right?
Hmm.
Like going back to our podcast story, when we started, honestly, we didn't even have anyone to compare ourselves to, and that helped.
And that's the funny thing. We were able to do two at a time because we
Huh.
had no clue that it could be difficult or that there could be a
Yeah,
thing that we could work towards.
yeah,
For as long as that was not what we were doing, we were fine doing two. Maybe we would have done a third one also.
correct, correct. And we were happy to get feedback
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was the low stakes plus the not knowing and willing to accept that we don't know.
It's the same thing. The environment of me and my four friends
Hmm.
versus
Yeah,
a whole universe of, yeah,
correct, correct. Because, like, neither of us really enjoy hearing our own voice. We
hmm.
hardly do
I think you should cut
edits.
that out. So,
So, definitely, low stakes is one, like our podcast journey. Being prepared really well, it, that's a good way to go about it, where you don't even think so much that you're preparing. You're not thinking that you're preparing to
yeah,
avoid
yeah.
feeling like a con job, but you're just preparing in the
No,
interest of
funnily, the
it.
visualization, all of those
Yeah,
things that
yeah,
people talk about, they help. And I think this
correct,
is such a pop culture, I don't know, inspiration. On Grey's Anatomy, one of the characters says, before every surgery, I stand like Superwoman
correct,
in front of the
correct.
mirror. And that makes me feel very confident. So,
Yeah,
actually, without realizing, we live a lot of stories in our own head.
yeah,
So, might
yeah.
as well use that for something that works for
True,
us.
true. I mean, just to say, let's go and save some lives
Yeah,
is
it's a thing,
like
right?
I'll do it. Like I'll get it done. Yeah, that's true. 21 seasons, but still, I mean,
22. Yeah.
yeah. And I think also if you feel really safe,
Hmm.
I mean, like your diving journey, I think
Yeah.
that's been a safe space for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
With
I'm
a
not.
lot of advocates and people supporting, and that's also something we try to bring into the work we do at Motley too, where we say outside, okay, the world will have its feedback, and that's
Mm,
the nature of work, like you said
yeah,
earlier, is
yeah,
to be
yeah,
in the middle of all of that feedback. But how do we practice safety as a value?
yeah,
Safety is not just physical also, right? It's emotional. How do I feel safe enough to be stupid in this room?
yeah,
How do I feel safe enough to say you're not giving me the information I need to
yeah.
do the work I need to do? Honestly, for that matter, how do I feel safe enough to say I'm neurodivergent
Mm,
and therefore please communicate with me this way
this way,
and I
yeah.
will get back to you?
True, true. No, very similar in coaching, so much so that we have to remind ourselves that, hey, move out of this fear of what we call peer coaching,
Hmm,
right?
hmm,
Where
hmm.
you, as coaches, as practice, as building your skill, as getting maybe, honest feedback or feedback in a language you understand,
Yeah.
you do a lot of peer coaching in the early days, right? Where one coach is coaching another, or one coach to be is coaching another coach to be, and at different stages in your growth. And you have to remind yourself that this is a safe space, right? But the real work also has to happen outside of this, where you're coaching real world clients,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
because then your language, your awareness, your presence, all of that has to do that shift, and that's where again the imposter syndrome
Has
creeps in,
such a
right?
chance of rearing its head.
Like, will I get this right, or will they say, hey, you don't seem to know coaching at all? The coach,
Which again, I don't think anyone said
no one
that in
says
the
it.
history of ever. But it's interesting that the mind is always
Yeah,
saying it.
because
Yeah.
the peer coach won't say it to me,
Yeah.
or will say it so well worded and clouded as feedback, etc.,
Hmm,
etc.,
hmm,
because another day I get the chance to say
hmm,
it back to
hmm,
them.
hmm,
But in the real world, you feel like the person may say, hey, I've had 3 sessions with you, nothing has happened.
hmm, hmm,
But
hmm.
like you said, nobody says that.
Yeah, they
Uh,
they might just quietly leave, but that's a different thing
yeah,
entirely.
yeah. And leave for
Um,
various reasons
yeah,
also.
yeah, not just this.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about maybe it's a personality thing, like
Hmm.
it's a thing
Hmm.
you tell yourself.
Hmm.
And I can easily see as I reflect on maybe my own journey thus far.
Hmm.
reaching for some kind of abstract notion of perfection is always a
Yeah. Yeah.
recipe for feeling this way.
Right.
And I'm sure it's one of many things. There are many reasons, but I feel like this is a very strong way to feel like you'll never get there.
Yeah, and it's so cultural also. Maybe a lot of us have that innate need to succeed,
Hmm.
need to prove,
Hmm.
because you've seen those around you kind of come up the hard way, or you
Yeah.
yourself have come up the hard way. So culturally, it's like don't show off, like don't pretend you know
Yeah,
or
that's
don't
what.
think you know.
It's interesting because on the one hand, you're saying aim for success, aim for recognition or validation, and on the other side, you're saying be humble, don't
Yeah,
seek it,
yeah.
don't expect it. And so, when will these two ends ever
Yeah,
meet?
and so I think when the two clash is when you feel like, did I really achieve it?
Yeah, because
Am
we
I
don't
really
know
good?
how
Because
to.
I'm not allowed to say it.
Yeah,
No one's really saying it to me.
yeah, and we
Uh,
don't know how to take the flowers we've been given. Honestly, I
yeah,
don't think any of us
yeah.
do.
So I die as a crappy post on LinkedIn.
So now that we know this much about a thing that
Do
we've
we?
always known a lot about and lived with, what do we do?
Hmm.
Where do we even begin? And what's the simplest? Because it's not going to come, announce itself, send a calendar invite, and say, okay, Friday evening, 5 o'clock, you'll feel like an imposter, right? It
Yeah,
happens in very real context.
yeah.
So, how do you, and that's the worst because then you're also in the middle of something
Correct,
and you're feeling horrible.
correct.
So, how do you even begin and where do you begin with the reframing?
I think that way, this labeling, which I mean, not all of us enjoy labels, but it helps that you have something to call it, right? And I think use that maybe liberally,
Hmm.
to say, hey, I think what I'm feeling here is an imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
and let me question it now.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
know. Let me accept it, and then let me question it. So let me look at the data.
Yeah.
Should I be feeling like I don't need to be in this room? Or should I be feeling like I'm not ready for this pitch
Hmm.
that I'm
Hmm.
about to make? And they'll say, hey, you're not, a marketer at all, or you're not a data scientist at all. What are you doing making this presentation? Because that's the feeling that you're getting,
Correct.
right? I mean, that's the what's playing in your head. The song that's playing in your head is literally somebody is going to stand up and say, hey, you walked in here saying you are XYZ, but you don't seem to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
You're anticipating that steep fall, because getting called out ultimately is a very steep fall.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not somebody politely saying, hey, do you want to relook at your credentials that you
Oh
are
my
they real? Like
god.
it's not a soft
I think I'm
landing.
just going to find 10 posts on LinkedIn and I'm going to leave a comment underneath and say, hey, do you want to relook at your credentials? Because again, LinkedIn is one place where no one seems to feel like an imposter when a
Yeah.
lot of us should.
Yeah. So I think the data, then go to the data. Like I've had past successes, or I've put in the years. If nothing, I've put in a lot of years into this expertise that I've built, or this career ladder that I have climbed, and I really, really deserve to be here. So data is a good way to remind yourself. What has helped me in some situations is to reframe
Hmm.
and say that, hey, this is a growth opportunity. This is not supposed to feel comfortable and cushy,
Hmm.
right? This is going to be difficult, right? Especially the drastic career switch that I made, right? From a
Hmm.
very, very, very corporate environment, being a banker, leading teams, having, hundreds in front of me who were doing things day in and day out, like literally like a shop floor, to being on my own and standing up in a pitch meeting or
Hmm.
trying to close a deal with somebody in human resources, L&D, people I've avoided all my life,
Hmm.
and say, hey, I can do this, I can
Hmm.
do a workshop, or I can teach behavioral skills, or I come from expertise.
Hmm.
And here I'm also coming from that expertise,
Yeah.
right? The base knowledge, I have a lived experience, but now I have to stand in front of a group of strangers and
Say
impart
it to
that
them. Yeah.
lived
Yeah.
experience. And you feel like, who's going to say, somebody's going to call me out.
Hmm.
Somebody's going to say, hey, why is she teaching us this?
Mm. So, how do you reframe when you're in the middle of it and all these different voices are
Hmm.
fighting for
Hmm.
attention? How do you typically go about reframing?
what helped me, or what helps me in those situations, is to remind myself that the thing I'm doing now could be two ways. One, hey, you've done it a million times. You've
Mm-hmm.
got this, right?
Mm.
That's one reframe that we'd probably already typically use
Mm.
to move forward, right? But the other thing that helps is to remind myself, hey, this is new to you.
Which
The
again goes back to what we said earlier, that as
hmm,
long as it's the stakes are lowered or
yeah,
low by
yeah,
default,
correct.
and I think for some of us, telling ourselves that it's a new thing and we are at the beginning of this is a very easy way to
It
bring
kind
things
of
back into
diffuses the
perspective.
bomb, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to say, hey, you have 20 years of leadership experience that you're bringing into this,
Hmm.
but standing in front of a group like this is new to you. So that
Fair.
reframe allows you to make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
allows you to fumble, allows you to hear negative feedback.
Yeah.
A lot of it is from your own head, right? Like you finish the session and you're saying, oh, I could have done this way, oh, I should have done that, I should have said this, I forgot to do that. All of that is, a lot of it is internal,
Hmm.
right? But also it lets you accept that, hey, not all 30 people in the room were smiling. Yes, it was a long day and whatever, but I'm new at this, so how
Yeah.
do I get better? Because it doesn't take away from my lived experience. So I'm not an imposter. I'm not coming and talking about something I don't know or haven't done.
Experienced or done something about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But
Mm.
this I'm new at. Standing
Mm.
and teaching, I'm new at.
Mm-hmm.
Facilitating, I'm new at. Being the
Mm.
trainer in the room, I'm new at.
Fair.
Right. So
Yeah.
that bit of reframing definitely helps. Definitely
That's,
helps.
yeah, that's actually a brilliant way to go about it and very contextual also. You don't have to sit down and journal 4 pages.
Yeah.
It can be very, I mean,
Correct.
as much as it would be nice to do that as well, but it's not always possible.
Correct. Correct. No, and that's why even for us, the journey, we started as an audio, right? And then to move to kind of a Zoom kind of thing and show
Mm-hmm.
our faces. And then when we came to full video, what we were telling ourselves is that, hey, we are podcasters now,
Hmm.
right? And but I'm still feeling like an imposter now with the whole setup. But hey, I'm new at this,
Yeah, yeah, that's
right?
true.
So
Mm.
that I think does help kind of reframe it, because by nature we wait to be, like you said, 100% ready.
Hmm. So, what I'm hearing you say, Subha, here is also that when you're new to something,
Mm,
either a system or it's just your first job and you're
mm,
new to the whole thing,
mm.
then it's very natural to want that validation to
Yeah.
come from somewhere, whether that is internal
Mm,
through reframing, through
mm,
telling myself, that
mm.
yes, I do belong here.
Yeah.
But it can also be external, which is what we were referring to earlier in terms of not knowing how to receive
Mm.
something good when it's
Correct.
said to us. And I feel like that also can be practiced in safe spaces, which is where having a mentor who, and I don't think the point of having a mentor is to validate everything we
Mm,
say,
mm.
but to hold us accountable, to say, hey, here, I think you're being a little too hard on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, it's okay that you did what you did, but the next time you do this, maybe you can do this. Is that reframing that's
Correct.
happening with a little literal mirror?
Yeah.
And maybe that makes a difference sometimes. Definitely, for some of us, it is important, and I'm not going to take away from the fact that external validation is important.
It is. Yeah. End of the day, it is in different ways, different metrics. We all seek it,
Absolutely.
because yeah, that Zen we haven't reached.
We don't want to also is the point.
But which is why this whole women in work, women at
Yeah.
work space, why we talked about a lot of, over the decades, a lot of affirmative action, giving them mentors, finding sponsors, finding allies, is because they are walking into an unsafe space. In many industries, the first woman to do something,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
first
Hmm.
woman to cross a certain level in the hierarchy, right? So the imposter syndrome can and will pull them down,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
hence you're knowingly creating those layers of external support and validation.
Hmm.
Because when you are in a key moment and feeling like, oh my god, why am I here,
Yeah.
why am I doing this pitch, why am I leading this team, why am I
Yeah.
presenting this idea, you have people and voices who will remind you
Yeah.
that you've traveled the journey that brought you here.
I think we need to say this and we need to hear this more often. It's okay to want validation. It's okay to seek it, ask for it. And I think it's also okay to give it back
Hmm.
more and more.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think today's workplaces are so many generations and so many complexities, that itself brings this imposter syndrome, right? Like it's not just the youngster, but somebody who's in their fourth or fifth decade at work.
Suddenly handling a team of youngsters. That's also
Suddenly,
a new
yeah, suddenly
situation
handling a
to.
very different generation, or suddenly feeling like, how did I last so long?
Yeah,
Now these
yeah,
new guys are going to figure out I don't deserve to be here,
yeah, yeah.
right? Did I really, contribute anything over all these years? So it can come in many shapes and forms. It's something that, I mean, if, yeah, like 7 or 8 out of 10 of us experience it,
Then I'm
it's all.
sure it's got its own ways of manifesting in each of our lives. Yeah. Even, I mean, honestly, as a parent, have you never felt like an imposter?
Oh
I feel
my
like an
god,
imposter every 2 days. So, you
the
know,
difference being there, I think they call it out.
yeah, true.
They tell you you're a lousy parent at
That
this
is true.
moment. But no, definitely, I think as young moms, we've felt it.
Yeah.
As young working moms, working in the sense going to a workplace, we felt it even more.
Yeah.
Right? And support groups have what have
Have
pulled
pulled us
us.
through. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of validation. Not even going to deny that. So
Yeah,
grateful for it,
yeah,
honestly.
oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I think ultimately what we're saying is that this is a very, very real phenomenon, right?
Mm.
So if you have days where you feel like, I get called out? Do I deserve to be here? Why am I here? Why did they choose me? Oh, they got it all wrong, and now somebody is going to shine a light and say, kick this person out,
Yeah.
right? It's very real. It's happening to the people around you,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, right? So acknowledge it, and then look at what you can do to, one, maybe calm your own mind with data, with the language you need to hear,
Yeah.
then from people you need to hear it,
Yeah. And ask for it.
ask for it, um, and move on, because that's the journey of growth. You will be new today, you'll be a beginner today, you'll be an expert tomorrow.
And for what it's worth, we're all in good company. So,
Very good
surely good
company.
company.
Very good
So, it's
company.
okay.
I'm now like on the hunt for a celeb podcast where they claim not to have imposter syndrome. One of my idols is a guy I realized has no sense of imposter syndrome.
Okay.
Jerry Seinfeld. He's so sure that he's the best at what he does, and he says it too. So that's,
Yeah.
they also exist. He's the 2 out of 10 all by himself,
Fascinating.
because his entire language is very, hey, I did the hard work to get here. I am one of the
Mm-hmm.
best comedians.
It's all in the narrative,
It's
is the
all,
point,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's constantly telling you in different ways that I am damn good at what I do
Mm,
because I've honed this craft over years.
mm.
He's done all. He's got like a chit of paper with every joke that he ever wrote, and in one of those documentaries, it's kind of laid out, and you can see it going down the road, kind of thing. So he's done the hard work. He's not saying just because I'm saying I'm the best, I'm the best. He's got that, his own data set,
To validate, yeah.
the money, the
Cross my
the
heart
fact.
and hope to be Jerry Seinfeld. So yeah.
Yeah, so they do exist, but they are a rare breed. And so for the rest of us, hopefully this episode helps. And guess what? This too will have a downloadable. My producer slash manager is giving me a side eye, but we will have a downloadable because there are some very useful questions to ask yourself when you feel this, and some very useful tips that we think will nudge you on the right track, or a more zen like track, if I may say. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Small Talk. Do hit like, subscribe. Please drop in your comments. Let us know when you last felt like an imposter and how you overcame it. Stories we love. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome to our segment that we like to call Read, Watch, Listen. So, my recommendation for this week is a beautiful medical drama, and I love that genre. So if you do, don't miss The Pit. This is on Disney Hotstar. Now, this is a medical show quite unlike the others that we've seen because it actually cuts out the unnecessary drama, right? It's about an emergency room in Pittsburgh and a group of doctors, interns, nurses, and of course the patients. And what's so real about it is that it's real. It's very just about what happens in their day. So it's like a 14-15 hour day cut into 14-15 episodes. So it's an hour each, almost like in real time. And you can see the nuances of what goes into just in a room like that, right? High criticality, high intensity, stakes are so crazily high, you don't know which way it will go, what will surprise whom, and everybody trying to give it their best, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing, having their own, you know, emotions, feelings, and baggage to deal with. Beautifully told, beautifully shot. So try The Pit.
It's very easy to see why Grey's Anatomy is now renewed for 22 seasons when they consider we are the audience because we're so hugely invested in the drama in other people's lives.
Mm.
So, my recommendation for today is probably something you might or might not have picked up at the airport and read through a little bit. Murakami is no stranger to the traveler who needs to spend 4+ hours on a plane anywhere in the world. But the reason why I picked this book especially is because the a conversation around mental health is quite important to me. And speaking of things we want to label and talk about, I think one of the things that doesn't get acknowledged as much is that we are social creatures and we live in very social contexts. And today, some of those contexts are breaking down because we prefer to spend a lot more time in virtual worlds than we do in the real one. And there's a particular story in this book called Men Without Women, and the title of that short story is Kino. And it's the story of a man who keeps running away from his feelings until they catch up with him in a very real sense. Reading that book essentially made me feel like, okay, how many times have I looked away from this dirty pile of laundry that I have in one corner of my room? And what do I do about it? So, my recommendation this week is it's a very nice, sweet book of short stories called Men Without Women by Haruki Murakami.
I think everyone has a Murakami they are yet to read.
Yeah,
So
and we have many. So,
lovely. Thank you so much. See you next time.